work, right? Okay, people are still coming in. Wow. Okay. All right, everyone, welcome. We are going to get started. I will be entering people as we go along here. I'm really happy to see 38 people, 39, joining us tonight. We have Jennifer, Sarah.
Sarah. Yep.
And from Read Intervention, who is our lovely and talented host, and she is going to share all of her knowledge with us on tonight as manipulation activities.
Well, I'm going to be going over a lot of what's in chapter 8. So I have my book handy if anybody has their books and they want to kind of follow along and really be focusing on like those different stages, of development with students from, all the way from the multisensory stage and then through the knowledge stage till they get to the automatic stage.
Perfect. All right, so I am going to watch the chat. Jennifer's going to be our teacher tonight, and we're going to have a good time. Thanks for joining us. I'm really impressed that everyone came. So take it away, Jennifer.
All right, I'm going to screen share. And okay. I'm going to pull up my video.
Phonological awareness stages of development. The information from this video can be found in Chapter 8 of David Kilpatrick's Equipped for Reading Success. The objectives of this video are to first identify the 3 stages of development that students will follow when they're learning new phonological awareness skills. We're going to examine how to teach students in the multisensory stage. That's where we'll be spending most of our focus for this video. And then we're going to model the use of manipulatives when teaching new skills. There are 3 stages students follow when learning new skills. This can be found on page 77 from Equipped for Reading Success. So we start at the multisensory stage. Now this is a stage where the student is unable to do the task independently, and they need some sort of a manipulative or external prompt to help them. And so this is really the teaching stage where they're learning how to do it. This is a stage where they'll make many mistakes, and we're usually on this stage for a while, particularly with some of the more complicated skills. Then we progress to the knowledge stage. Now at this stage, the student can do the task mentally without the manipulatives, but they can't do it quickly. So this is a stage where they occasionally make some mistakes, and they're really working towards that speed and automaticity. And then we get to the final stage, which is the automatic stage, and that's where we want them to finally be. It's sort of the goal of it, where they can do that task independently, they can do it accurately, it's automatic, and occasionally they might make a mistake, which is typically due more to losing focus than it is to the actual task. But this is the stage where we want them to be eventually. We're going to begin by focusing on the multisensory stage, and this is really going to be the focus for most of this video. You can refer to pages 77 to 82 in Equipped for Reading Success if you would like a more detailed explanation. So for most of our students who are reading and students who have letter sound knowledge and they're beginning to read those CVC words, when we get to the point where we're going to be showing deletion activities or manipulation activities, substitution, we can show the students first using letters what it is they're going to be doing. And then that sort of sets a purpose and an understanding for why we're doing these kinds of activities, because we always want students to understand the why. So for example, if I have the word bat and I wanted to show the student what happens if you delete an initial sound, I can actually show them using maybe magnetic letters, or I could use a whiteboard and write the word bat, and then I'd remove that B and show them that bat becomes at. Another example would be if I wanted to show the students manipulation and substitution. We could substitute that I for a new vowel sound. So for instance, if I have the word pin, I could show the student that if I erase the I and then I add an E, I get a new word. Pin becomes pen. So this is where you would want to begin with your students. The next step in the multisensory stage is taking this very abstract idea of deleting or substituting sounds or syllables or onsets and rhymes and making it concrete for students by using 3D objects or manipulatives. So I like to use different types of materials depending on the type of activity that I'm doing. When I'm doing syllable or onset rhyme work, I'm typically using note cards, and I just buy stacks of those, just different colored note cards. If I'm doing syllables, I just leave them the regular size. If I'm doing onset rhyme, I'll just cut a note card in half to show that the onset is a little bit of a smaller unit. Usually it's one letter, it might be 2 letters, like a blend. And then I have my rhyme unit I keep as a whole note card. And then when I'm working at the phoneme level, I use chips or I use Unifix cubes to help with that. So I'll just go over the way this would work. So here's one example. Let's say I'm showing the students the word napkin. I may have them start by just tapping it, napkin. Say napkin without nap, and then I just remove the card, and I get kin. If I'm working at the onset rhyme unit, it's the same type of thing. I'll show you a manipulation activity where what we would want to do is we would want to switch out the onset with a different onset that has a different color. So this is green, so I might use blue or red, but you want it to be a different color to show that you're replacing it with a new sound. So let's say I was doing the word pin. I might start by just having the students tap it out. P, in, pin, to show them that this stands for P, this stands for in. And then I would show the students if I change P to F, I have a new color now, I get fin, so pin to fin. So I just show with a new color to show that the beginning onset changed. And I could do the same thing for the rhyme. You would want to switch it out using a different color. So if I have red here, if I'm changing the rhyme, maybe I use blue or yellow, something different. And then when I'm working with the phonemes, it's the same thing. Now we always want to start by having the students just segment. So once a student is able to segment, then you can move on to things like deletion or substitution. So if I was trying to get students to just segment, I would just have them tap the chips or move the chips into those sound boxes. There are different ways you can do this. But let's say we're doing the word track. T, r, a, k. They could tap it, they could pull the chips down. And then if we want to do a deletion, we would say track without t and take away the chip. So track without t is rack. Okay, and then if we wanted to do a manipulation or a substitution activity where we're taking out a sound and we're putting in a new sound, just like we did up here, we want to do it with a different color. So if I were doing, say, the word mat, at, and we want to change a to I, that middle sound is changing, we would want to switch it out to a different color to show that it's a new sound and then a new word. Now for this activity, the onset is going to stay the same, but the rhyme is going to change. So for example, if we say b-ack, and then we change ack to ugh, we get b-ugh, bug. Okay, let's try some. Say the word fit.
It.
Change it to ed.
Ed.
Good job. Let's try another one. Say map.
Map.
Change app to it.
It. Mit.
Great job. Now in this activity, we're going to take these cubes and we're going to use each cube to represent a single sound in a word. So I'm going to give you the word and you're going to break that word into the individual sounds. And when you do that, you're going to take the cube and you're just going to move it for each sound. Okay? So if I gave you the word sad, you would just do s, a, d, sad. Okay? Now it's your turn. show me the word Fred.
D.
Now blend it.
Friend.
Good job. You can go ahead and put the cubes back in the circle. Now we're going to do some activities that are a little bit more difficult, where we're going to take away one of the sounds. So let's start with the word snip. Go ahead and show me sniff.
Snip.
Good. Now say snip again, but don't say s. What's
Nip.
left? Nip. Nip is left. Great. Now let's go ahead and do another one. Say claim. Show me claim. Good. Now say claim again, but don't say k.
Lane.
Great job. Once students are able to do those types of activities with 3D objects, and they are very skilled with this, and they really don't need the 3D objects, you can use visual cues as sort of a way to kind of wean them off. They might not be fully ready to go right to those 1-minute drills, but they're ready to move on from using the chips or the cubes or the cards. And so the visual cues are just kind of a way to bridge that. So what do I mean by visual cues? Well, we have things like clapping. So if the students are maybe segmenting syllables, word into the syllable components. And that's something that we do quite often with preschool or kindergarten, even first grade, where they clap the syllables. And then we have things like tapping, finger tapping, or finger spelling to isolate the individual phonemes. And this is something that's a part of all these different programs like Orton Gillingham and Wilson, where the students are segmenting and using their fingers to tap or finger spell. And then we have hand motions, and the Hegarty program is great with the hand motions. I have a link down here if you want to check it out. On YouTube, they have lots of different videos to just show ways you can use hand motions to segment, to blend, all different kinds of activities. And you can also make up your own if you have other ideas. But using hand motions are just a really great way to support the students as kind of that bridge between the multisensory stage and the stage at which they're really ready to work toward that speed and automaticity. And then another activity you could think about doing, especially with our little ones, is using hand puppets, which is really effective, particularly at the syllable level. If you're trying to break up words into syllables, you can actually show it with the hand puppet. Because when you open that mouth, the chin is dropping, and it's showing how that syllable really looks when you're speaking it. So it's just a fun way to have students break up words into the syllable level. Once students no longer need visual cues, then you can move on to supporting them with oral cues when they need it. So here's some examples that you can do. One is the whisper technique. So you would whisper the part of the word that you would want the students to delete. So for instance, if we're doing sailboat, instead of just saying the whole word, say sailboat, but don't say sail, we would whisper the part we want deleted. Say sailboat. Now say sailboat, but don't say sail. And then the students would kind of hear boat because boat has been said more loudly than sail. Just a little bit of a way to support them, give them some clues here. Another one is to stretch out a sound. So if I want them to change the middle sound, I'm going to really emphasize the middle sound. Say at, change to I. So it just really gets them to focus on that sound that you want them to pay attention to, because they're going to be manipulating that sound. And then similar to the whisper is sort of the opposite. Say the part louder that you want them to really focus on. You can do that as well. So if we want, say, for instance, the student to substitute a final sound, we might really emphasize that final sound, say it louder. So if I'm saying say map, change p to t. So I'm emphasizing map because as I'm saying a little bit louder, it's going to draw the student's attention to that part of the word. So that can be helpful as well. Once students understand what to do and they can do it, we're working on the knowledge stage. So we're working on that speed and that automaticity. So we can use those 1-minute activities, and we want to make sure that we're doing them quickly because we want the students to really work on increasing their speed and their automaticity. And one of the things I like to do at the knowledge stage is I like to have them do something physical when we're working on these drills for speed, because it takes their mind off of what they're doing, because I don't really want them thinking about it. I want it to be automatic. So one of the things that we'll do is we'll toss a ball. Now I can't do that when it's virtual, but when they're in my office and they're with me face to face, we can toss a ball. You can have students bounce a ball, but just doing something physical to get their mind off of it, so it just becomes really this effortless automatic response. And finally, we come to the automatic stage, and this is ultimately the goal of where we want the kids to be at every stage eventually. So the automatic stage is where kids are not thinking about it. They're doing these skills. It's effortless. It's automatic. How do you know when you're supposed to move on from this? Well, typically, once I see that students are completing the activities through several consecutive sessions of meeting with them, and they're getting 90 to 100% accuracy, and I do record every time I do a 1-minute drill, I do record the percentage that were correct. So if they got 8 out of 10, I write 80%. If they got 10 out of 10, it's 100%. And if it's automatic, I don't note that, but if it happened to be slow, I do note that if it's not automatic. So for instance, let's say a student had 100% accuracy, I would write that down, but I would write down slow so that I know it's not automatic yet, so we still need to keep working. So once I see that a student has completed several days in a row and it's correct and it's automatic, then I know it's time to move on and I can teach them something new. Now, one thing to keep in mind, though, is we want to always be doing those review exercises that are found in the 1-minute activities. And I like to just follow the program. And when we get to a review, I complete the review. And sometimes you will see that the students make some mistakes. And then at the next session, I'll make a note of that and we'll go over it again. And oftentimes it just takes a couple of examples and they're kind of right back on track with it. But it's really important to make sure you're doing that review because some students do need to go back and review previously taught and learned skills. For more information about online training and materials, visit learn.readintervention.com, where you'll find video modules on foundational literacy skills and materials for implementing evidence-based instruction, including over 600 PowerPoint slides, posters, tools, assessments, and online digital tools.
Whoops. Stop sharing.
Okay.
Okay, you good? Can everybody see?
I was going to type that in the box, Jennifer. You want to type your
I don't actually see the chat box.
Against this one.
Oh wait, there we go. Sorry. So one of the things I want to remind everybody, this is going to be like, do as I say, not as I do,
I really hope
is that when I was doing some of those recordings with my daughter, I was definitely not clipping my sounds. So be aware of the clipping your sounds. Like with "k," I cut myself.
I just want to be mad. That's when.
And one of the things that's really, really helpful, especially if you're doing online learning, is I have a mic, and it is so much better. It's so much clearer with the kids because I was finding before I got the mic, I felt like they weren't hearing me as well or as clear. And so I was doing a lot of that like "k" because I was trying to say things so loudly. When you have the mic, you can just do the "k," and it prevents you from, adding that schwa sound. So just a tip if you're doing online instruction, get some sort of a mic. It just makes it easier for you to have nice, succinct sounds.
Jennifer, what kind of
Yes.
mic do you have? That's one of the questions.
I have one from Amazon that I ordered. It was like $60.
I mean, it's nothing special. I just went onto Amazon, looked at some reviews. You can get a decent microphone for $50 or $60. Or
Can
if you
you hold
wanted
it
like
up?
a headphone, some of the headphones will have good mics. If you want to like spend $100 to get like a gaming headset that has a good mic, that should work too.
Does it have a name on it? Can you hold it up and show people?
This is what it looks like. What is the name on it? I need my glasses. It says Fifine. This is what it was actually. Fifine Technology. That's
Oh,
the one that I
okay.
got.
Let me
I'm
put that
pretty
down.
happy with it. But I'm sure there are a bunch on there that would work. It just prevents you from overemphasizing and then, adding that schwa sound. Whenever you've got a mic, it's just always a good thing. So I wasn't reading any of the, so Donna, do you want to feed questions?
Got a couple.
Okay.
Okay, let's see here.
If I can just add, if you're in a real hurry for a headset, a lot of times Best Buy might be sold out, but Office Max and Office Depot, they are the sleeper candidates. They have a ton of stuff that many places sell out of, and most people don't think of them until about third or fourth, if they even do. So try those places, and their prices are comparable.
Great.
Thanks, Bonnie. That's a great idea. Okay, here's our first question. How do you track students' work with small groups? Do you pull one aside and quiz them?
So most of the work that I do is individual, but I did work as a reading interventionist with a public school for several years where I did have small groups. So what I did is I had like a little note-taking sheet where I would have the drills. We would do a few together, but then I would have them take turns for the last few. So that way I could see, can that student really do that skill? So again, if I was doing a 1-minute drill, the first 5 or 6 we would do together as a group. And then we would just go around and each student would get to do one on their own. And that just let me know if there was anybody that was, I don't want to say faking it, but just sort of going along with the other kids. And that was helpful. But then again, periodically, maybe even like once a marking period, you would just decide, that's probably about what I did about once a marking period, where I would just redo the whole past with all of my students. So then you kind of get a sense of where they are.
Good. I'm going to just read this in case everyone's
Okay.
not seeing this. There's a great website called Toy Theater. They have moving chips with the squares. You can change the color of the chips. The kids love it, and it's so nice to have the kids see the chips move. I have not found anything like that before.
Cool.
Toy Theater.
Is that online? Is that an online tool or a?
I'm assuming so.
Yeah. One of the other things you can do, and I can screen share to show you guys this, because Donna, you had asked about virtual, since a lot of people are doing virtual right now.
Right.
One of the things you can also do is you can use, a lot of you teachers are probably using Google, so you could use Google Slides, or you could do Jamboard, or you could use PowerPoint if you're using the Zoom platform. But I'll just show you real quick. Oh, hold on one second. Click screen share. So here's an example of using something digitally. So in my PowerPoints, this is something that I'll do, and you can actually just manipulate chips like this. So if you're maybe having the students have a word and they segment, and then maybe you want them to substitute a sound, and you can go ahead and you can do that. And then I have like a little pointer that I use to have them segment if I need to go back and reteach. So you can make, using just the shape tools, you can make all different things for manipulation for phonemes. And then I have this little guy that I like to use for beginning the initial, the medial, and the final sounds. So let's say you're asking students to identify the final sound, they can tap k, at. Okay, that final sound, what do you hear is the final sound. So there's some tools you can use on using Google Slides or PowerPoint that are also really helpful for virtual. So, and you can make it yourself in like 5 minutes.
That was awesome. And everyone knows about UFly, right? The University of Florida's hub for.
Yeah, they've got a lot of great resources.
They sure do. Okay. Let's see. I'm not seeing anything.
There's one question. Do you feel it's better to have the kids do it online as opposed to them have a physical object to move for themselves? That's a great question. And I think it's so individual for the student. I have some students that I tried doing where I actually sent them some objects and it just became distracting for them. When they're in my office, definitely I give them the cubes or the chips and I have them do it with me, but they're right there in front of me so I can help them focus. But I find for online, a lot of times, yes, we want the kids to do it themselves, but I think it's tough online. I haven't had a lot of success with that. I've had more success with me, being the one that's doing the manipulating than having the students do it.
Okay. I don't see anything else. I'm asking Chris a question. What would you like to see next month? Although we've already asked this, but let's just see what you have. We got 54. We got 54 people tonight. What would you like to see?
We had talked about, Donna, did we talk about maybe talking about how you can use your phonological awareness to drive reading instruction?
Oh, yes.
I think that's the topic next month.
Yep.
That's a good one.
So that'll
That's
be
a helpful one.
November?
That's November.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that'll be good.
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
So we are starting live instruction in the next few weeks, and we're doing this. We're supplementing our core instruction because about 50% of our school is not at proficient in reading, and we're using this.
Mm-hmm.
So as we're doing that, and we're doing interventions, and we're going to do groups, but we're also going to do individual. Kilpatrick says in here to do this, up to 10 times a day with some students. And when you've got your intervention time, and we're going to try to figure out if we can have literally everyone walking around with lists. You're lining up in the gym and you're changing classes. We're going to do some fluencies. It might not be at their level, but when you're working with somebody, you've got your tutoring time. So do you have the parents do this with the students?
That's a good question. Yeah. So it's a variety. Depends. If I have students that just need a little bit of work, then no. If I have students that I think need to be doing it every day, then yes, I do that. And I will show the parents how to do it. And then I'll send them, I'll take like a screenshot of it and then I email it to them and I tell them just do one 1-minute drill a day.
Okay.
It seems like that would be a lot to do, 10 1-minute drills a day. And I can tell you, I do nowhere near that with the students I see. Most of them I see maybe 2 to 3 times a week. And a lot of them, it's maybe 30 minutes, 3 times a week, 4 times a week. And I'll do 2 1-minute drills during that time. And they still make excellent growth.
Really?
They really do. And I have one student, he's an 8th grader now. He's been getting help since 1st grade. He has treatment resistant dyslexia. It's very severe. And he has come so far. And really it was spending maybe 5 minutes a day on it. Wow. And he went from not being able to do any advanced, not a lot of the basic, and he can do all of them now. He's not automatic at the advanced levels, but he's able to do them all. So I don't know. I think if you're spending between 5 and 10 minutes a day total on phonemic awareness or phonological awareness, the broader skill for those little ones, I think you should be okay.
Okay.
Because you don't want it also to get to the point where they hate it because you're doing it all day long.
Right.
It's got to be somewhat novel and fun for them.
Right.
So I wouldn't feel pressure to walk around with like a list and make sure that you do it 10 times a day. I think you could just, if you do a little bit in the morning, and maybe for those kids that really need it, maybe 3 times a day or 2 times a day. I don't think it's necessary to do it that much.
Okay. So. And then is your group also, how long, when you're doing a lesson like you were just showing, is that 30, how long do you do it?
You mean like an Orton Gillingham lesson or?
Well, if you were doing what you just showed us on the slides, are you doing this for 20 minutes? Is this an hour?
No, I spend about 5 minutes.
That's your whole 5-minute phonemic awareness.
5 minutes, phonemic awareness. Yeah. Because I do Orton Gillingham with kids.
Got it.
So, so you're doing other, phonemic awareness skills, like when you're having them finger spell, you're segmenting and you're doing them. But I do Equip for Reading Success for 5 minutes, about 5 minutes. Now, if I have a kindergartner or a beginning 1st grader who has really poor phonological awareness, I might do 10 minutes because I might need to cover more skills with them. But most of the kids that I see are, you know, like mid first grade and up.
With a lot of fourth.
Yeah, I actually get quite a few kids, 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade. A lot of kids that get missed. You know, they're those kids that are very bright and they were really able to fake it through like 3rd grade. And then they get to the point where the pictures are gone and they can't compensate. And now they're stuck. And every single time, I'll tell you, I just assessed a 3rd grader. I don't know how she was able to read as well as she could. It was amazing. She, in isolation, did not know almost any sounds, even short vowels. And her phonemic awareness, she couldn't do the onset rhyme level. I'd never seen that before. But it just was a testament to how bright she was, that she was able to compensate. But she, you know, was crying every day because school's so hard. I'm like, well, this is why. But she's a brilliant kid that she's able to read and not have all of these underlying, you know, foundational skills intact. It is a miracle to me. It's the way some of these kids survive. So it's great that your school's doing that and you're giving it to everybody, because you just don't know. Sometimes you think kids are okay and they're not, unless you really assess them and kind of dig deep and figure out what they know and what they don't know.
Yeah. We're well, got to try something.
Yeah. Well, good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, here's another question. Can you repeat the percentage of correct responses you want students to have before they move to the next set within the automatic stage?
So, I mean, I've even looked back at his book so many times. He doesn't give specifics. He gives kind of like a general idea. And so I kind of go, for me, I'm looking to see, are they getting like 90% of, like I'll do the, 10, there's 10 of the items in a 1 minute drill. So I always record how well they do with each of those 10 as a percentage. So if they get 8 right, it's 80%. If they get 9 right, I write down 90%. If they're hovering around like 90%, 100, a lot of times they'll do really well with once they get really kind of automatic at it, they might get like the first 6 or 7 right. And then they start to lose focus, because a lot of the kids I work with have attentional issues. And so you have to kind of pay attention. Are they starting to get it wrong because they're losing focus? And so you might need to kind of adjust, because they might know it, but after they've done it 6 times or 7 times, their mind starts to drift. So there's that kind of, have to kind of think about that as well with your kids. But I find after we've done maybe, and it just depends on the student and kind of like my gut as to where, if I think they're ready to move on with how quickly they're doing it, usually 3 or 4 times where they're getting like 90, 100% correct. And it's fast, it's automatic. That tends to be when I say, okay, I think we're ready to move on and try something harder. But then we continue to review that one until I really feel like it's completely solid. So it's not super, it's not like a black and white thing. It's not super scripted. You have to kind of make a decision about when you feel your kids are really ready to move on. But I would say, like, if they're hovering 90%, 100% for a few days in a row or a few sessions in a row, then I think it's time to try to move on. And if then you see that maybe they're making mistakes down the road, you can always go back and reteach it a little bit. Like, I pull out my cubes all the time, because for me, most of my kids are in that basic stage or the advanced phoneme stage. And so I use my Unifix cubes. It's just, I found that it's the easiest way, virtually, especially. So I pull them out a lot.
Okay, great. All right, here's a question about a district not wanting them to switch to use Wilson instead of equipped. My first response is they're not the same program.
It's not, no, it's not the same thing at all. I think they would be a great complement to each other, if anything. Right. Because Wilson is a great program, but Wilson doesn't address phonemic awareness, awareness to the advanced level. So I would say that Equipped for Reading Success is a great add-on to any program, like a Wilson or Aspire, or Aspire does have phonemic awareness in there, but again, it's not as targeted because it's not based on a phonemic awareness assessment. That's what I love about the past. you do the past and it's so targeted, you know exactly what you need to do with that student, versus even a program like Spire, which I love Spire, I think it's great. But the phonological awareness tasks in there are not based on what that particular student needs. It's based on what they're guessing they might need, you know, according to where they are. And a lot of it's syllabication, and, you know, you want Equipped for Reading Success is just so targeted. I would add that to any program.
Yeah, I see it that it's almost the precursor to the Wilson, but it should be used simultaneously. You know, it
Exactly.
have to be used at the same time.
Yeah. There's a question I just want to address about the recommendation was 10 to 12 minutes for Equipped for Reading Success.
Right.
So I think too, you know, and I've emailed him and talked to him on the phone, but I think he really doesn't want us to try to take what he says as like the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some of what he said, he's like, it's a guideline, you know, it's a guideline. So that 10 to 12 minutes. Now, I think a lot of it, he's talking to like a classroom teacher. If you've got your kids all day and maybe you're doing things at, I as an interventionist, I can't take 12 minutes from an OG lesson to do Equipped for Reading Success. Like, I just can't do it because there's too many other things I have to get to. And then you have to adjust. If you have a student whose phonological awareness is so low that maybe you do spend between 5 and 10 minutes of your lesson. If like a kindergartner, I'm going to be spending most of what I do with a kindergartner working on phonological awareness, but I'm not going to do that with a 6th grader because there's too much I need to teach. So it's a range. So for me and what I do, I'm spending on average about 5 minutes. That doesn't mean for some kids it might be a little more. For some kids, it might be a little less. Like, I have had some students who have difficulty reading who have very good phonological awareness and phonemic awareness and can do all the skills. Maybe just need a little bit of work at like M1, M2. And so for that student, this is not my top priority. I might spend a minute on it. So it just has to be individualized, I think, based on your student's needs. And his stuff is just really a guideline because there's so many different scenarios.
Can you do a sample word of how you are using the Unifix cubes? Is it similar to the felt squares?
So I like to use the Unifix cubes when I'm doing the any kind of the basic phoneme level or the advanced phoneme level. So if I'm working with the individual phonemes, I like to use my little cubes. And one of the ways you can do this, like if you don't have, some teachers have document cameras. This is sort of like the poor man's document camera. It's my little cheap trick. This is what I do. And I have a document camera, but sometimes it's just a pain to plug it in. So I actually will just, like, let's say, I'll just put one up here quickly. You just have to always remember to do the opposite because the kids are going left to right. So I'm so used to doing it the opposite way. So you have to just make sure you're doing that, but you just tip down the screen and then they can see it. And then you can actually manipulate it. And, you know, you can show them change to b, but at. And I manipulate it and just, you know, or I delete or whatever it is. And that's just a really easy way to do it. Super easy. And it's quick. You don't have to hook up a document camera or, you know, click anything. It's literally, you tip it down, you tip it back up. So that's a kind of a nice, easy way to do it. So I only use the Unifix cubes when I'm doing anything that's a phoneme deletion or phoneme substitution, or if we're just segmenting, although I really love just finger spelling too for segmenting because it gets them, or tapping, however you do it. That's a nice, easy way to have them segment. And then when I'm doing the onset rhyme, or pull this out, or these are the kind of cards that I use. I would just have them use little note cards to show syllables, and then they just, you know, can tap it. And then here's like the onset rhyme. I might use like little note cards. Nothing fancy.
Okay, so someone's asking about can you show a concrete example of what Wilson will not do, but EFRS will?
Yeah.
Okay, so.
Yeah, so Wilson does a lot of segmenting and blending. So, you know, Wilson does the finger tapping. Now, I'm not a trained Wilson teacher. I haven't been trained in Wilson, but just some of my friends have been trained in Wilson. So we have taught and one of my friends is both Wilson trained and OG. So we've kind of talked a little bit about the difference. I've also worked with some kids who have gotten Wilson from trained Wilson teachers. And then they came to me and I realized their phonemic awareness was really weak and it wasn't being addressed at all through their program in terms of like really narrowing in on an assessment to target what that student needed and then teaching them to that. So Wilson includes a lot of the blending and the segmenting, but it doesn't include an assessment unless they've added one that I know they have the weight assessment, but I don't believe that has a phonological awareness component. So yeah, so you're not going to be doing those, like if you're looking at the past, for instance, you're not going to be doing any kind of deleting phonemes or substituting phonemes. That's not part of Wilson unless it's been revised and maybe that's been added. I'm not aware of that. So that's why I say I think this is a great add-on to Wilson. To me, that's the best of both worlds because the Wilson will give you all of that phonics and the controlled text. It's going to give you everything else, but it's not going to give you that targeted phonemic awareness. So that's my opinion. That's probably my advice. Add it in. Do both.
Jennifer, you're spot on that from my understanding. That's exactly right. Okay. Topic for next month, perhaps a session on the proper way to divide syllables. Some people do the patterns by counting using the vowel sounds, while others do it by consonants and get quite confusing. I think this is more of a phonics lesson as opposed to.
Yeah, and I think, and I have to say too, I feel like this is just my own, people might be mad at me for saying this. I feel like sometimes people get taught one way and they get into this rigid camp of how it should be done. But the thing is, you can look at different programs, different experts, and they're going to tell you, well, you could do it this way, you could do it that way. And I don't think we need to necessarily limit ourselves to it's only one way. I mean, I've even read Louisa Moats wrote something about this recently that I read somewhere where she was talking about how we can get stuck in that a little bit too much.
I saw that too.
And I can't remember where it was.
I saw that, and she was talking about the different places to divide things, right?
Yes.
It was just
I can't remember where it was, but I thought that makes a lot of sense.
It's true. Like we get so stuck in that.
Yeah.
Can you talk about the working memory constraints in essentials? Kilpatrick mentions that a kid may not make significant progress if they have a weak working memory. How severe would the working memory be, and by what measure?
I'm not equipped to answer that. I'm not. I think someone who's like a neuropsychiatrist or someone who, is more skilled in that's definitely beyond me. But I can tell you this, that sometimes what will happen is kids will carry over a sound from the previous word.
Someone mentioned that earlier.
And that's a sign that they have weak working memory, that's a working memory issue. And I didn't know that until I actually met him at a conference and I asked him that. I said, I have this student and he always carries over a sound from the previous word. And he said, but that's working memory because he something that can, is a sign that if you have a student that's doing that, it's probably a sign that they do have weak working memory. I can tell you he improved. He did improve with working on it. And I don't think there's a magic pill for working memory. I don't think there's like a quick fix. I think it's a way you have to adapt to it a little bit.
Right, exactly. And if you keep working on it, it will.
He's not so little, he's 10. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
A little guy who does that sometimes too, and I've been working with him since about May, and we've been doing Haggerty exercises. Again, he's 10, 5th grade, and we're doing the pre-K. And today I was saying the nursery rhyme, Polly put the kettle on, repeats the first line 3 times, and then different verse, and then there's 2 times with Suki take the kettle off, and he just got all flustered with it, and I said that's okay. But what I've noticed too is that to help bring that along, I will be doing I use Barton, and there are some certain things that we're doing with level 1, and I will actually increase the speed. And once he starts looking like he's getting shaky on that, I know, ooh, we're pushing that envelope. But we started him with foundations and sounds and moved him forward. And even he knows that he can do and hold much more now. So those are just huge victories, but we're finding a great deal of help with Haggerty right now.
That's
Good,
good.
good. Okay.
Can I clarify my question about working memory?
Oh,
Sure.
yeah.
Actually, my question is about the pushback that I was saying. So David Kilpatrick, in his essential book, he's showing like impressive success when you do phonics plus equipped for reading success, like about 20 to 25 standard score. But he also has a caveat saying that, you know, when the working memory, sometimes the working memory could be a hindrance. And so the question I have is, did he quantify how severe the working memory was, and then is he discouraging that we don't even do equipped for reading for success because the working memory is bad?
I don't think he's suggesting that. I don't think so, because a lot of the kids I work with have issues with working memory. And I think it's almost as if, I mean, at least the kids that I've had, they have improved it. They haven't. So I think I don't think it's something that can be totally fixed, but I think it can be improved. One of the things too, like sentence dictation. I don't know if any of you out there, probably a lot of you do. You'll give a sentence and they have to hold it. They have to repeat the sentence. That's one of the cues too, that you've got a student with working memory. They can't repeat it. They give it back to you and it's, the words are wrong. You know, and I've had kids like that too, where it was so hard for them, but after months and months, they could do it. So they make baby steps, you know, they can improve. So I don't think he's saying that you shouldn't do it. I think he's probably just saying it's sort of an added hindrance to a lot of kids. If they have a problem with working memory, it's just going to be just another hurdle, which a lot of the kids do have both. They have reading problems, they have working memory, and
what about attention? Would you say, do you have experience of working, because another pushback we get is it cannot work with kids that have attention issues. Maybe David Kilpatrick's study was only for pure dyslexic kid.
That's not true. Definitely not true. And I can tell you that from experience, because probably 80% of the kids I work with have an attention issue. Some extremely severe, to the point where they're reading and the eyes just go like this and they're like at the ceiling, like very severe. And what I would say to that is they absolutely can do it, but you might need to do it in small doses, because they start to get distracted, some of the kids, and not all of them are the same. So I don't want to lump them all into one, you know, bucket. Depends on the child. But with all of them, I've had success with this. But with some of them, after the first like 4 or 5, they do start to get distracted. And in that case, you might want to break it up. If you have to kind of know your student and where they start to lose it, and you might want to break it up. But also having the visual, or having, if you're face to face, you can have them manipulate, and they love these Unifix cubes. I had one little guy, he loved these things. So I would make him a deal. Like if we could get through the activity, I'd give him 1 minute on the clock. He could play with the Unifix cubes. So, you know, you do what you can to just keep them focused, but they can absolutely do it. Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Last one. When do you use the benchmark test? There are 4.
Do you mean for the past, or do you mean for Haggerty? Talking about that? I'm not sure. Because I know Haggerty, I know we talked a little bit about Haggerty, that came up too. They have benchmark 3 times a year.
Jeannie asked this.
The past. So it really depends. Now I do my own thing. I'm one-on-one. So I have it the easiest, because I use the past as my initial formative assessment. And then every time I meet with them, I'm doing the activity and I'm noting exactly how they did. So there's really no need for me to do it again because I'm constantly on top of it until I think they're ready to exit. And then when I think they're ready to exit, then I do give it again just to make sure that they really are ready, like I thought. But now if you're in a public school or a private school and you have groups of kids, and I would maybe do it once a marking period if you could. But I mean, I don't think there's like a right or a wrong or a certain amount of time, especially if you're using it as the formative assessment. That's the most important piece, because then you're teaching to it. And if you're taking notes and you're monitoring how they're doing, then I don't really see too much of a need to administer the entire thing again, unless you suspect that maybe your level's off, or maybe the student suddenly can do more, unless there's a reason for it, or unless you want to use it as sort of a way of benchmarking and doing it maybe 3 times a year or 4 times a year, depending on what your school decides. You could use it in that way. So I hope that answers your question.
Okay. There was a question from Bonnie regarding a neuropsychologist in Wisconsin, and I'm gonna private message you, Bonnie, with an answer, because I know of one, but I can't remember his name right now.
And somebody is asking about a decoding assessment. So
really great reading and love it. I have used the free.
There's so many different ones. There's so many different ones out there. I mean, when I assess kids for decoding, I like to do 2 things. I like to see how they can decode real words, how they can decode nonsense words. So one of the things you could think about is that if you were looking at a norm referenced assessment, the Tower 2 is awesome. I love the Tower 2. And I like to use that with my students. And it's really it really is the only, sometimes I use the CTOP pieces of it, but for my purposes, the past works for me better. But I do like to do the Tower 2 because I like to get a percentile to see where they fall. And so I can see if they're falling at the 10th percentile. A lot of times parents come to me and they don't know if their child has a reading problem. So I want to be able to say to them, well, your child's decoding at the 10th percentile. So you might want to consider if, getting a neuropsych eval, or they might want to have their child tested. So I do like that. But in terms of like a criteria referenced assessment, there's a lot out there. I mean, there's the core reading assessments. It's got the core reading phonics survey. That's a good one. I also like to see how students can read, and this is this is part of my OG training. We used this, how they can read those just in isolation, phonograms in isolation. Because it's interesting to see and compare the 2. How are they reading it when it's a real word? How are they reading it when it's a nonsense word? And then how are they reading it when it's in isolation? And I like to compare all 3. But again, I'm an interventionist. I have the luxury of having 2 hours to mull over all these assessments. If you've got 20 kids or 30 kids and you're a public school teacher, you don't have that kind of time to do all of that. So nonsense reading assessments are great too, to help you really see how the kids are decoding.
That's what
Spire has a free one too. Spire has a free assessment.
They
you can get. Yeah, they do. It's online if you go to the EPS site, and it's a combination of mostly real words, but then they do throw in a nonsense word for each concept. So that's a nice little assessment too. You could use Spire if you're looking for a word reading assessment that's free.
Yeah, there's one called the Nonsense Word Test, period. And I think Scholastic put it out, I think, initially. And there's 4 quadrants. It's CVC, then long vowel patterns, consonants, digraphs, and then other vowel patterns. I love that test because it's just it's so telling. You can tell so much from it.
You really can. Because a lot of kids will, if they've read enough and they have enough memorized, they could do okay on the real word assessment.
Right. That's why I don't count on real words at all. I always count on the nonsense words.
Someone's saying the Wiley Blevins nonsense test. Is that the one? I've never seen that. I haven't seen that one.
Yep. Super simple.
Great.
That's the scholastic one, and it goes up through multi-syllabic. I use it all, and it's groups of 10, so you can do the math percentage.
Groups of 10.
Oh, that's great.
It's so easy. It's wonderful.
Yeah, no, that's a good one.
Okay, Dibbles ain't. All right, are we done? We good?
So someone was asking, how is reading a word in isolation? Oh, it's not what I meant was a phonogram in isolation. So like for instance, showing them EA as of the vowel team and seeing, can they read it in isolation? That's what I meant. I'm sorry. I didn't mean a word. I meant a phonogram in isolation. And I just like to see how they do with that. It's interesting to compare it. And when I went through my OG training, that was actually how they had us assess the kids. We just did the individual letter sound combinations.
Okay,
Anything
I
else?
think we're good. Jennifer, as usual, I just love listening to you. You're so good.
You're so good for my self-esteem. You should have a talk with my husband. I don't think he likes hearing me talk all the time.
I know, my husband
We
too.
speak the same language.
Oh my gosh. I don't even know if the world was falling apart. I wouldn't know it because I'm so entrenched in this. Anyway,
I hear
all
you.
right. We thank you so much for your time and your talent, and we'll see you next month. Thanks so much.
Sounds good. I can't wait.
Thanks everyone for all you guys are amazing because you're working all day and then you sit all day and the
Yep.
evenings learning all this stuff. I'm just so proud of all of you working so hard.
Teachers are so dedicated. Oh, and I've got my favorite mug.
Exactly.
Because we're all superheroes, right?
Awesome. All right, friends, take care.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
guys. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
you.